Recently, I found myself feeling quite a bit of manga burnout, to the point where reading new chapters for series that I heavily enjoy isn't as fun as it used to be. Even new manga that I start that I know to be good haven't been really hitting the same, and it's been killing my motivation to read manga, which sucks since that's basically what I do for most of my commute. I found myself simply skimming across pages of manga panels, not really bothering to analyze what's going on or be that emotionally invested in what I'm reading. Now, you might say, that's because you're reading a shitty harem rom-com that's gone on for far too long with the biggest cuck of a main character we've seen in modern times, written by a mangaka who has a whole ass wife and kid and still insists that the fictional high schooler he draws and writes about every week is his true girlfriend. What was I talking about again? Right. Manga burnout. It's something that's seemingly inevitable for people who read a lot of manga or consume a lot of anime. This isn't even solely specific to anime and manga in general. It happens in basically every form of media once you consume it for long enough. The elements that used to wow you don't move you as much, and you start to think to yourself, am I really falling out with something that I used to truly love? I was starting to have these thoughts myself as well, and my solution was to blindly keep reading manga, hoping that one of them would eventually hit. However, from the very start, my solution to this problem was completely wrong, and I didn't know why until I stumbled across a manga called The Fable. It's a manga written by Katsuhisa Minami that finished serializing back in 2019 in Kodansha's Weekly Young magazine, which for some reason always has graveyard models on the cover of it, even though the contents of the magazine are seinen manga. The whiplash of seeing jugs before proceeding to read a gut-wrenchingly realistic manga about human suffering has to be crazy. Wait, maybe the jugs are for after to ease the pain. Anyways, I've been reading The Fable recently, and I've surprisingly read over 200 chapters of this manga in the span of a week and a half, which is pretty crazy for me since I'm a pretty slow reader. It's a manga about a hitman named Akira Sato, who's also a member of an assassin group named The Fable, a group so infamous that even the Yakuza believe that the group is an urban legend and are scared shitless if they're ever faced with the prospect of going against the Fable. Within Fable itself, Akira is the best of the best when it comes to hitmen, being personally groomed by the that doesn't sound right at all. Personally trained by the boss of the organization, and Akira himself is feared within the organization, despite no one really knowing what his actual identity is. When I first read the premise of The Fable, I didn't really think I was going to be moved by it at all. After all, it kinda just seemed like seinen Sakamoto days, which is another manga that I've been reading week to week but haven't felt as much excitement for. But The Fable was different, completely different from Sakamoto days. It's about Akira trying to integrate back into society after being trained as a ruthless hitman for his entire life, along with his sister, Yoko, who served as a driver for Akira whenever he finished up a job. Instead of being 200 chapters of non-stop action featuring a badass main character with an extremely cool personality taking on the whole world who's out to challenge him due to his status, The Fable ended up being arcs of Akira running into some realistically devious folks while he tries to improve his new 9-to-5, trying to get that extra 100 yen pay raise. What really made me excited to read The Fable was how realistic it was. It truly sticks to the premise of a legendary hitman trying to lay low in a small town in Osaka, and Akira himself is pretty damn weird. He isn't cool in the traditional sense per se, he's just pretty aloof when it comes to social situations, which is very understandable given how he was raised by being forced to survive the harsh environments of a mountainous terrain at a young age by himself. Yep, this organization is run by psychopaths. Akira is a really quirky fella, and I can't really pigeonhole him into one category of character. He's kinda just a dude who's learning how normal people go about their lives, and as the fable goes on, he slowly but surely changes in a very realistic manner. He doesn't go from a badass assassin to the FBI's finest. He goes from a man who knows nothing but killing to a man who's learned about Christmas, learned how to draw, and took care of a pet for the first time. He's awkward and quiet, but that's what makes him so likable. Like he's that one homie who's a little weird, but you're still ride or die for him. I found myself really enjoying the slow parts of The Fable, chapters that would just be pages of Akira laughing at a C-tier comedian with his pet parrot. With every confrontation with a shitty Yakuza member came a fun little trip to the bar where I got to see the bartender do a play-by-play analysis on Yoko after she manages to outdrink everyone who tries to hit on her. Don't get it twisted though, the villains in The Fable are also written very well and realistically, especially the Yakuza, who know they blackmail and extort for a living but they don't really even care. One of the major villains of the manga is a guy who looks for children who have helicopter parents so they aren't suited for the real world once they're grown up, blackmails said helicopter parent victims, and forces their parents to pay up so word doesn't get out before popping the kid themselves. It's a scheme that I could definitely see happening in real life, and the villain himself acknowledges how shitty this is, but also says that society made children this way and that he's simply taking advantage of it. Even after after taking down such a villain, there's a whole arc of Akira just thugging it out in the mountains. He's not even doing anything insane. He's just chilling and imparting good wisdom when it comes to survival to the person who tagged along with him. Reading this arc, it finally hit me why I had felt so burnt out on manga before. I was simply reading far too much of the same genre, in this case battle shonen. When I read the Fable, I was glad there wasn't a brand new power system to figure out. There wasn't some huge villain who wanted to take over the world, and the main character wasn't a bastion of never giving up and achieving their dreams. It's about a really odd dude who's trying to figure out things in a normal life for the first time on his own. I know this isn't some huge epiphany either, like no shit you're gonna be burnt out if you keep reading the same kind of manga, but the thought never really crossed my mind. I never thought the genre of what I was reading was the issue since it's always been my favorite genre. But reading the Fable made me realize that I need to diversify what I read pretty often in order to stay engaged. Yeah, battle shonen might get me hyped more than any other genre, but clearly I wasn't able to feel the hype that I should have felt when reading due to burnout. Not only does this take away from my reading experience in general, it also takes away how I perceive the quality of a manga to be in a way that isn't really genuine to the source material itself. It's not the author's fault that I felt burnt out, but I still may have placed the blame on their work for not being engaging enough. If you're gonna take away anything from this video, it would be branch out and read different genres of manga. I know it sounds obvious, but it really helps in situations like this. You never tried reading shoujo before? Go ahead and pick a series up. You may not like it from the premise, but you'd be surprised at how unique of a reading experience a great shoujo manga is. Been reading too much seinen? Why not try reading a lighthearted manga like Spy Fam? Feeling degenerate? Ecchi manga's right there. Although, I know none of us will actually admit to reading or watching ecchi, but well, they're still around for a reason. Try reading different kinds of manga more often is my main point. Not only are you gonna get to experience stories written in ways you haven't read before, but you're also gonna get to appreciate your favorites even more. If you've been feeling burnt out, try something new. Maybe you'll find your own Fable. Or you could read the Fable. This manga is really good, and I'm surprised no one really talks about it. It has great art, great characters, great ambiance, and great action sequences. By the end of the Fable, the small town in Osaka where the entire manga takes place really feels like home, and all the characters, despite coming from all kinds of different backgrounds, really feel like regular people that you could run into while you're in the convenience store. It doesn't stray away from the dark realities of how organizations like the Yakuza operate, or how shitty people can be in general, but it shows you how fulfilling a new job can be if you have coworkers that actually care about you. It really shows you how to be a pro.